All right, in this section we're going to look at the green part of our rainbow review. So for these, we're just describing the transformations that would happen. So for this first one, we have x minus, we're taking the logarithm of x minus 5, and then we have this plus 2. So remember what that means as far as horizontally. X minus 5, since it's the minus 5 is happening directly with the x, so we describe that by doing the opposite. So this means that we would go to the right 5 units. 2 is happening after we take the log of x minus 5. That means it's going to be affecting the graph vertically by going up 2 units. Now remember, this parent function has a vertical asymptote at x equals 0. It would be a vertical line going through where x equals 0. Now since we're going to move that right 5 units, that means the vertical asymptote is now going to be at x equals 5. So I want to make sure that we do that as well for each of these problems. All right, so number 2, we have x plus 3 minus 7. So again, this is going to affect the graph horizontally. The minus 7 is going to affect the graph vertically. So horizontally, since we have x plus 3, this time it means it would go to the left 3 units. And the minus 7 means that vertically it's going to go down 7 units. And since it's moving to the left 3 units, the vertical asymptote for this would be x equals negative 3. All right, so for numbers 3 and 4, we're finding the inverse here for each of these functions. So to find the inverse, remember the first step is just change this to an equation now instead of a function. The next step is we change the x to a y and a y to an x. The next thing we have to do is we have to change the form it's in. We're going to change it from logarithm form to exponential form. So our base here is 3. Our value is x, or the exponent, I should say, would be x, and the value would be y minus 2. So again, right now we're trying to solve for y. So to solve for y, I would add 2 to both sides. So we would get 3 to the x power, so y equals 3 to the x power plus 2. Or we could put this back into function notation and say that this is the inverse of f of x is 3 to the x power plus 2. All right, let's look at number 4. So this is a exponential function. So to find the inverse of this one, we're going to follow the same process. The first step is we're going to change this to an equation. And the next step, we're going to change the y to an x and the x to a y. Then the next step is to change the form it's in, because right now it's an exponential equation. I can't do anything more with it, so I need to change it to a logarithm function. So it would be log, our base would be 7. Our value would be x, and that's going to equal our exponent, which is y plus 5. And again, I'm trying to solve for y here. So the last step, I would subtract 5 from both sides. So we'd have log, base 7, got 5 there. Here we go. So log base 7 of x, and then like I said, we would subtract 5. And the only final details, we would just put this back into function notation. Oops, this is function g. So we would say that this would be the inverse of g of x equals log base 7 of x minus 5. All right, let's look at the next one. So the next one, currently it's in function notation. So again, we would go through that same process. So we would say y equals log base 5 of x minus 4. The next step, change the x to a y and the y to an x. Now, even though we would want to change this to exponential form, before we do that, we want to make sure that we get the log part by itself. So we would have x equals, or we would add 4 to both sides. So when you do that, we would have x plus 4 equals log base 5 of y. So now we would change the form it's in. So again, our base would be 5. So it would be, and our value would be y. So it would be y equals our base of 5, and then our exponent's going to be that entire piece, x plus 4. So that's really important that you do this in the right order. So now that entire x plus 4, what it equals, would be your exponent. And then the only final detail would be to put this back into function notation. So we'd say this is the inverse of h is 5 to the x plus 4 power. Well, that's it. That's the end of the green section. So hopefully that answers your questions that you had for that section before you go to the next one.